Yes,
Now,
yes, indeed.
that makes me think of the concepts of good and evil, because my beliefs around good and evil are changing. Um, I believe in them. I think some people are, well, first of all, overarching umbrella fact, I believe that we are all playing different parts in on God's stage, right? I think that it's all a reflection of the source of all things. So at the highest level, no, I don't think there's such thing as good and evil. That's the overarching. But within the human story, I think some people are here to play evil roles and to exemplify to the rest of humanity what not to do. And I also think that most of us here in the human story, at least in recent history and now, are here to play a somewhat silent role, meaning a turn the other way and look away from the light, right? Look away from the evil that's being done, or the very obviously potentially dangerous for children, and look away from it and say, well, that's not my business. And that goodness stands out. I grew up believing that people were inherently good, and my spiritual beliefs when I came into adulthood, really up until about maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, I thought that people are basically good. Now I don't believe so. I think people are basically cowardly, and that good and evil stand out from the crowd equally, and that a lot more evil stands out than good. But when good stands out, they stand out stronger. That's what I believe. And then I reflect on the stories that I love that are fictional, Naruto and Hunter x Hunter, and these animes, as well as movies that I like to watch. And you see, good is rare, but it's strong. Evil is kind of rare, but they have more numbers. And silent and cowardly is the number. And I think that's a reflection of human beings. What do you think about that? That might be a lot. Sorry for the loaded question, but
No, it's
I
okay.
thought about it a lot. Yeah.
I'm just trying to process. So I would agree mostly with what you said. I do think that majority of humanity kind of tries to take this neutral view. But in saying that, I don't think that they're necessarily neutral or cowardly, because they feed into the good or the evil whenever they see fit. So it's more of, I think people need to stop battling the concepts of good and evil in their heads, and then we would be able to actively evolve the concepts of good and evil as a whole
So
to the
be
way that they should be.
Mhm. So like
Because
be good with your behavior instead. Is that what you're implying?
not even that. I mean, I'm a firm believer in balance. So if you don't want to be good, then don't be good. Like, do what you want to do. Like, I'm not going to tell you not to do that. I'm not going to agree with you. I'm not going to support you or any of the things, but I'm not going to infiltrate on what you should decide that you want to do in terms of your moral compass, right? It's not my job to hold you accountable. It's your own job to hold yourself accountable for what you deem good or evil in your own life.
Okay.
However, I think in today's society, especially in America, we don't even know what good and evil is anymore. A lot of the things that people think are good are inherently evil.
I
And
agree.
a lot of the things that people think are evil are actually inherently good.
I agree.
And so because we've come back to this disconnect of what's light and what's darkness, right? There can be no real evolution until there's a reconciliation of that understanding. Because understanding comes first. You know, I practice numerology a lot, specifically Kabbalistic numerology, which just takes you through 1 through 10. The number 3 is Binah, it's understanding. you can't get to 5, which is the struggle. You can't get to 6, the victory, 7, the completion, the assessment, without first gaining the understanding. So for me, it's like, I grew up believing that people were inherently good because of the type of person that my mom is. But people weren't inherently good to her. So her being such an open-hearted, giving, generous, kind person, and seeing people take advantage of her, it made me like, people ain't shit. Like, most people really ain't shit. And that's just how I look at the world, honestly. And then when I got more into my psychic gifts and I started reading energy and auras, it was like, oh,
Right.
y'all really need to get it together. Like, this is a lot. Like I'm over here thinking like, you're cool, we're great. And now I'm seeing things on you that are just like, whoa, not good. So I think good and evil is more of man-made terms that we just need to learn how to bring balance to. And if there was more balance, then we would have a better society as humans. But because there is a lack of balance, more evil penetrates through our societies as a whole.
I respect that. I mostly agree. There's 2 points where I kind of don't. I just want to bounce. I'm not going to argue with you. But I just want to bounce.
I trust that we will have a natural debate.
Yeah. Because I can't help it. One thing is that you said near the beginning, a lot of people don't really know the difference. And so if you're someone out there that's doing evil, chances are, let's say 7.5, 8 times out of 10, you don't even know that what you're doing is harmful to yourself or to others. So it's not necessarily my job to check you on it or to do anything about it at all. Mm-hmm. or within reason, right? I mean, obviously, if it's infringing on your space, I would guess that you would do something in those instances. But in general, It's not your job. It's kind of right. Where I kind of disagree with that is you don't have to do that with a high level of judging the individual. I think we can point out the root of the evil, for lack of a better way of putting it, the root of something, without becoming hyper judgmental of nitpicking their actions or nitpicking the way that they think, and just deal with the root. And so I think that if you do know the difference, if you're, let's say, sensitive enough like yourself or knowledgeable enough like myself to really have a pretty good grasp on what the difference is, then I think that's a gift, and I think you should use your God-given gifts. That's just my opinion. And so there might be an argument for some personal responsibility in dealing with evil. And the second thing I kind of disagree with is that and you didn't say it like this, but you kind of implied it, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that it's completely man-made. I didn't
say it was completely man-made. I just said there are man-made additives that come with good and evil that create confusion surrounding what is good and what is evil. And I'm also not saying that you shouldn't call evil things out when you see them. I'm just saying that the way that we hyper analyze things that are bad is not conducive to balance and duality, which is the society that we live in. Okay. Because everything is not meant to be good, and that's just reality.
Right. It wouldn't be. Why would we be here if it was all creation and no destruction? Absolutely, exactly. I agree with that. So then, so I don't disagree with you, but I'll say for those out there that may think, well, good and evil, that's just a man-made. These just man-made concepts or man-made adjectives that we use to justify our own satisfaction in judging people, and because that is a very popular thing to say or to think, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that one that automatically separates man from the supernatural. And I don't know if that's you can't separate a thing from its source. So if what comes out of man very naturally, right? All of the holy books, all of the spiritual teachings, they all are on morality and ethics, all of them, without exception,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the the Bible or the Buddhist teachings or the yogic teachings, even some of the mythologies and the polytheistic thoughts, all of them, they have been divine at least a high percentage, versus like Naruto, for instance, right? Like, yeah, somebody may think that's divine, but it's not on the same level as these spiritual teachings. Like, they speak directly to the heart of people. And when you can understand them, then you really, people that really, really understand the Bible, they do amazing things. There's some really amazing people. And all of the other books. And so good and evil really doesn't come from man. It comes from God. It's just, man may not fully understand it before he's trying to play God and make judgments based on it. And I think that the study of goodness is called wisdom. I actually got that from listening to Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager from Prager University. He's the co-founder of it, and he said in order to really know goodness and to build, to contribute to building a society of good people, you have to study what good is, and the study of goodness is wisdom. Learning, you have to take the time to learn what is wise and what is not. And during taking that time, you have to make mistakes and get experiential knowledge of what is wise and what is not. And so I think, yeah, there's nobody that should be going around and saying, by my judgment alone, this is evil and this is how society should treat you or somebody else because of it. But I do think that on your journey, when you are clear on something, you know what? Yeah, that looks good on the surface, but I know in my heart this is not a good idea or this is not a good thing to do. Then, yeah, we should attack the root of that evil.
I agree with you, but I still feel like a lot of what you said doesn't have anything to do with good and evil. It has to do with recognizing the God within you, which is a part of your spiritual journey. I just made a post that I posted last year and reposted where I said at the end of the post, the spiritual journey is about knowledge applied. Knowledge applied is wisdom. So if you inherently know certain things and you do those things, then you're moving with wisdom. But when we talk about God consciousness, right? Because that's a thing. When we talk about God consciousness, if we're going to say that good and evil comes from God, God has done good things and God has done evil things in every text that you're going to read. So I will say again, it is by our own judgment as humans that we choose to define what is good and what is evil. Everything has its place in terms of balance, right? But at the end of the day, when you have access to God consciousness, when you know inherently what you should do to be a good human, which has nothing to do with God, then you should do better because your fellow humans are impacted by your behaviors and your thought processes and what you choose to put out into the world. You're part of a greater collective, right? So absolutely, knowing that you should be doing certain things and not doing other things that some people would deem evil. But when we talk about the God level of that, it doesn't exist. So then that argument that you just said, it just doesn't make sense because it's like, at what point do we say, I'm taking my hand out of the judgment and I'm becoming the best version of myself and doing what I know I should do to be the best human that I can be. Because then everybody's working towards the greater good versus working against forces that have been here, will be here, and are going to be here.
Well, I think the distinction is that one working on themselves with that attitude often leads to too much isolation.
So why would you become isolated when you know that you're a greater part of a whole?
They don't. They don't at the beginning stages, at least. I'll put it like that. There's different, right? So that's what I mean, is taking into account the plethora of places that we can be, right? And sometimes you reach a high stage, but then life comes at you in such a way that you start a new cycle and you don't know the things that you knew at this other high stage anymore, because things don't make sense to you anymore. You're back in your incubation, in your rewiring, in your letting go stage. And so it's not even an age thing, right? It's not even a, by 35, you should have this much wisdom. Like, it's not even.
No, it's never
like
about age. It's just about knowing.
Yeah.
Like, you know that you shouldn't be doing certain things to children, right? Like, you inherently know that. Everybody knows it's a thing that goes without saying, right? But it still happens. It still happens, and it happened in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, these are sins of man.
Yeah.
These are things that have to do with humans trying to elevate their experience through exploration.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't start out with, I'm doing this thing because I know it's jacked up. You know what I mean? And the fact that we know now that certain things are jacked up, it doesn't take away from the fact that everything in essence has its place within your journey, and you are the only person who can decide what is inherently good or evil for you, because your heart's going to be weighed by God, not me, not soul, right? So it's like, I can tell you all day, hey, you shouldn't be spewing out that type of energy. It's very negative. This and this and this is going to happen. And you're creating this type of negative cycle and blah, 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 this and blah, 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 that. But if you're not ready to hold yourself accountable for the actions or intentions or thoughts or whatever that I deem evil, and you're not ready to change that, my perception of what you're doing doesn't have any interference on your life. Just the same way that God's...
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, I don't mean that. I don't. Okay, then I think we're going to agree when I say this, then, because I don't mean. I don't mean it. It's hard to talk about it without sounding like I mean checking people right there in the moment, but I don't. I really, really don't, because that will often be a waste of time and a waste of energy. Although sometimes it would help, and I think, like I said, I think you would do that in those times that you would know, oh no, I need to say something right now. Like, it's different. So no, I don't mean checking people in the moment. Hold on. What I mean is, really quick, is recognize, okay, seeing person A or group A that's engaging in this, and let's say even engaging in it and believing that they are doing good, when it's clear that they're not, but they believe that it's clear that they are. And let's just assume, for my example, you are the correct one, the one that's saying, no, this is not right. That in God's eyes, whatever, you're right, they're wrong. This group of people that's doing this thing. It's not to go up to the group of people in the moment and say, don't do that, and here's why. It's to teach the children, this is an example of what not to do, and here's why, and to normalize within it as much of the community that you can practically reach without overstretching yourself. This is what we're going to teach the children, because these are the results from what this group over here is doing. And then when this group eventually makes it to your doorstep, fighting like hell. That's what I mean. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree with that. I agree with that 100%, because you can't allow certain things to infiltrate righteous spaces.
Yeah.
And I think you said a lot. You said a lot right there when you said you're not going to go up to them in that moment and tell them, hey, this is wrong and this is the right way to do it. Because it's not about right and wrong. It's about righteousness. So you're going to teach the kids to move in righteousness, and you're going to keep out the energy that tries to disrupt the righteous flow. And I 100% agree with that. I think you should protect the righteous flow of energy in all spaces, in all things. And because we haven't done that, that's why we're where we're at now. And
on the side, it's about normalizing the righteousness in as much of the community that you can reach. And that's